Hello again, I am Blunty, and for those of you who've been keeping up with the build of old Devil's Crevice here, new Devil's Crevice, brand spanking shiny, well not shiny, it's a matte black case, but I think you know what I'm getting at, my new gaming PC that I've been building over the past few weeks, doing a build log series of videos about, Man, I really should write stuff down before I just turn on the camera. I just words and things sometimes. But the last two pieces of the puzzle are now complete. I have my graphics card and I have my aftermarket CPU cooler, which I don't know. Well, that might be just in the way. Actually, if you know your graphics cards, you can probably tell which graphics card I got by now. Even if you can't, even if that's not in focus, you could probably that iconic blue light may be giving it away. I'm not sure. Anyway, cooler first. Just because I like to tease you guys. I went with the H100i GT from Corsair, which is an all-in-one liquid cooling unit, and there was quite a few people in the comments of the videos where I asked, well, what are your guesses what I'm going to use for a cooler? Now, why did I go this route instead of an air cooler or a larger radiator cooler? Because this is a smaller sort of single unit radiator, whereas some other coolers, 240 coolers, are more common. Basically, the H80i GT has a thicker radiator, so it cools very, very close to the same, so down to the same temperatures and effectiveness and efficiency of the larger radiators in the test and reviews that I saw. Test and reviews said it was quiet. I'm not completely satisfied with how quiet it is. The fans are reasonably quiet, at least they are at the quiet setting levels. If you rank them up to max, they get quite noisy. I may still replace the fans. I don't think I need to because my temperatures are pretty under control, and we'll get into that a little more in a second. But I wanted to try all-in-one water coolers. I was just curious about them, and the other reason is because of the case I chose, the Corsair Air 240 case. There's a depth issue in the case which limited my choices as far as air coolers go. There are very, very good air coolers out there that cost, a third as much as this and cool almost as well as an all-in-one water cooler does. Some even better, but they're too deep. They wouldn't fit. I wouldn't be able to get the side panel back on. So I was restricted in my choices as far as an air cooler, heat sink and fan unit go. 3 units, 3U or below. And there are some good choices out there, but I was curious about, I've never done water cooling before and I was curious about it. I wanted to try it. Worst case scenario, I'm out of pocket and I sell this thing on eBay and switch out to one of the alternative coolers that I was looking at, which I'm not going to go into all the different choices I made, but I'm really happy with the way this cools. The fans are nice and quiet. There is a little bit of a whine in the pump noise, and it's pretty much the only noise my computer makes when it's sitting in idle. The system fans are just about completely silent. The fans on the graphics card, although they do spin when the card is idle, unlike some of the other choices out there, and I'll get on into that a little bit later, they are very, very quiet. And if the microphone might just pick up the subtle hum of that pump. Which sounds very close to a fan. Anyway, I'm not completely happy with it as far as noise levels goes. If I'm sitting in a quiet room doing nothing else and sitting here, it kind of bugs me. I mean, this computer is going to sit up on the shelf back here, so it's not going to be right next to my ear. It's going to be behind me a bit, and the vents and up the top and the back where most of the sound is coming out may sort of be pointing away from it, and that may reduce the sound a little bit as far as noticeability. It's not a word. But I may end up switching to an air cooler down the track if it continues to bug me. However, in regular use, when I'm listening to music or watching TV that's over there, or I'm playing a game, I'll never hear it. And most of the time when I'm playing a game, I'm wearing headphones anyway. My little Sennheiser's up there. And it makes, that there is practically no noise, and the microphone on my headset doesn't seem to pick up the noise of the active system when I'm playing games. I streamed for like 11 hours yesterday and nobody said anything about any background whine or hum or anything. And that's down in large part to that microphone on the Sennheiser Game 4 Hero with the headphone thingies, because they're remarkably good headphones, microphone set. Anyway, so that's the cooler I went with. And some people did guess right. Actually, no, I don't think anyone guessed right. A lot of people said the H80i I don't think anyone gets specifically the GT model, which is an updated model, which is a different pump and cooler system. There are different aesthetics, different tubing on it, and different connections. And the radiator on the GT is thicker than the standard edition, I believe. I think that's the main differences anyway. Anyway, I'm very happy with that cooler. The CPU, now that I've got that installed, I went ahead and overclocked the CPU. Stock speed on the CPU is, of course, the 4690K, the i5, is 3.3 gigahertz. I spent a day playing around with overclocking it, sort of going back and forth and fiddling with voltages and the timings and all that kind of stuff that overclock. I mean, if you're curious about overclocking, Google it. I'm going to do your guide because I'm just the wrong person for it, because it's been a long time since I've overclocked, and if I start telling you about how to do it, I might forget something important and you'll blow up your system. So Google it. Anyway, point is, I kind of lucked out on the silicon lottery. Now, no two chips overclock in exactly the same way. You can't be guaranteed of the same overclock that I have on here. Some people have better overclocks from their chips under the same cooling, conditions. Some people have much worse overclocking ability on exactly the same chip, basically. But I got my particular chip. Let me just check my numbers here. Yeah, up to 4.8 gigahertz, which is a 37% increase in clock speed, 37% overclock, which is kind of awesome, especially when you consider I'm dealing with an off-the-shelf stock standard, anyone can buy, not customized at all, single unit, small, all-in-one water cooler. And the best thing is, the second generation Haswell, the Haswell refresh chip that the i5 is already known for being, well temperature managed. Even with the stock cooler, my idle temperatures were like 35 degrees-ish, a little bit under, 32, 35. Under load, it ramped up to about 68. I don't think I've ever managed to get it above 68 under a normal load. Under a stress test, yeah, it spiked up to close to 90 at one point on the stock Intel cooler, at which point I stopped the test because that's too hot. Overclocked with this water cooler, my idle temperatures, actually right now I can see it in the case, 28 degrees, 27 degrees. And that's pretty standard for just an idle system there. It'll ramp up to about 32 degrees under light use when I'm surfing the web and watching videos and listening to music and all that, standard desktop kind of stuff. Under load, under a real world gaming load, I've never seen the temperatures go up beyond 65 degrees, which is still quite cool for a fully loaded CPU. Under an artificial stress test, I did manage to get the temperatures to spike up to 72 degrees at one point, which is still a good, at least 8 degrees under that sort of 80 degree threshold that you'd like to keep your CPUs under as a general rule. So, even under artificial conditions, max load, stress testing it at prime 95, getting it to do nothing but churn away and brutalize the CPU and then basically try and cook it. That cooler, even in quiet mode, by the way, still kept it 72 degrees or under. And if I ramped it up to performance mode, where it spins up the fans to max and spins up the pump to max, and it makes a hell of a racket when you do that, the difference in temperatures is kind of pointless. It's about 5 degrees ish, so I can leave it in quiet mode all the time, which is brilliant as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, that 4.8 gigahertz overclock without even breaking a sweat, brilliant. I can push this CPU higher, by the way. I've got the voltage on it at let me check my notes. 1.288, which is, you want to keep that under 1.3 for daily use. I mean, if you're an extreme overclocker and trying to go for records, you can push it beyond that, but you wouldn't want to use your PC overvolted like that. You'll shorten the lifespan significantly, usually. Well, there's some debate, but people like to keep it under 1.3. So I'm well under the 1.3 at 1.288 volts. I can push that voltage higher and get the clock speed higher, but then I get into trouble with longevity of the chip, and temperatures of the chip start getting a bigger issue once you go past that. So this, the 4.8 gigahertz that I've got it overclocked at is my standard, all day, every day overclock, and I've been running it for 2 and a bit days. Just overclocking. I've played games, I've streamed, I've done all sorts of things with it. Nothing, absolutely rock solid stable. And I've run artificial stress tests, rock solid stable, 4.8 gigahertz overclock, which is just brilliant as far as I'm concerned. I love it. Now, graphics card. Some of you may have guessed already, because like I said, that blue light, the Windforce blue light over there is fairly iconic and instantly recognizable to anyone who knows the graphics card. I did go with the GTX 970. A lot of people were guessing that. Some people were still guessing the R9 390 or even 390X from AMD. And that was a leading choice, and I've talked about that. It was either this or the 390, basically. I was trying to decide between the two. Ended up going with the NVIDIA card for a couple of different reasons. One is I like the GeForce Experience software. It's a very nice software to use as far as drivers and controlling your the card in general and your settings and fiddling with stuff. I like the shadow play functionality because, of course, I'm the YouTube guy, so being able to record really easily and reliably with shadow play is really nice. It's got the onboard H.264 processor there, which I can apparently, I haven't tried this yet, but I can get OBS to use the video processing on this board and take it off the CPU load, which could sort of help me with performance wise in the system in general when I'm streaming. Not that I've had any troubles with that at all, but it's nice to, something to play around with. And the other reason is power and heat. The R9 series of cards are well known for running quite warm, and a lot of the coolers have to be quite large or quite loud to compensate for that. There are several quite quiet editions of the R9 390. If you want to go that route, there is absolutely some good choices out there. But again, we come down to the case I chose, which did put some limitations on the space I had available depth-wise. Length-wise, I've got 312 millimeters worth of length for the video card. That's plenty of room for even large cards. It's the depth, space from the socket to the window, basically, and that's when I ran into some problems. I did want to go for the MSI card or the Asus card, but in both those instances, the coolers on those things are too deep. For the MSI one, the cooler itself extends out a little bit too far to get it in the machine and get it mounted. You can kind of get it mounted in this card. I've seen people do it. If you pull out the motherboard, mount the card on, and try and squeeze the motherboard in, and then screw the whole thing in, and it's a rigmarole. On the Asus Strix, the card and cooler itself will just fit in, but there's a couple of heat pipes that stick out beyond the cooler as well that interfere with the case window as well. So those two choices were eliminated for me. There was some modifications I was willing to do to the case window if worse came to worse, and I couldn't find a decent alternative. I found two decent alternatives though. One was, of course, the one I went with, the G1 edition of the GeForce 970 from Gigabyte. And there are several different Gigabyte R9s. This is the G1 Gaming. I think it's the highest end one they have. We'll get into the details of that in a minute. The other main choice I had was the EVGA cards. It was not the Superclock. They've got like 5 different cards EVGA. It was basically, I'll put it on screen to tell you the right one. Was I can't even remember the specific card. All this data is swimming around in my head. So much research I did trying to find the right graphics card. The most difficult choice ever in building a gaming PC is finding the right graphics card to suit your needs and your budget and your performance and your cooling needs and the space in your case. And it just about did my head in. I was going nuts. But the EVGA was a good choice also. The reason I went with the Gigabyte in the end was because this particular Gigabyte, despite being a Windforce cooled card, and Windforce coolers, the heatsink and fan combination they have on the cards it's got a bit of a reputation for being loud. This particular one though, because the 970 already runs kind of cool, this particular edition of the Windforce cooler is apparently quiet. Not only quiet, but one of the quietest coolers across the board. And as I said before, it doesn't stop the fans when it's sitting at sort of idle, or sitting below 60 degrees like the Asus does, like the MSI cards do. They stop the fans completely, so they're absolutely silent when they're not doing much work. This always has the fans spinning, but they're very quiet fans. And because of the way the heatsink and the heat pipes are designed, they very rarely, I've found so far, very rarely need to spin up at all, to 50% or 70% or even 100%. When I do force them up to 100%, though, they are very loud. But like I said, the general way I've got the cooling in my case handled, the airflow, I haven't found that this card, under regular, normal gameplay loads, has ever needed to really spin up at all. And I've kind of pushed it and tested stuff, but yeah, I'm quite happy with it. Quite happy with it indeed. The only thing I'm not happy with is the blue light. I'm not sure I want to light my case blue, and that's not an RGB light. That's, if you want blue, you got blue. You can make it sort of brighter and dimmer, or you can make it pulse and breathe, but that's it. The light on the Corsair cooler, RGB, you can change it to whatever color you like to match your case scheme. So I may even have to mod that light or turn it off completely if I decide to go for a different lighting scheme in there. And the light on the Corsair cooler I can just, program into whatever color I need it to be. The other reason I went with the G1 Gaming, beyond having a remarkably good and quiet cooler and keeping the temperatures well under control, and this is one of the coolest cards in the 970 range as well, which surprised me, because I thought, well, anyway. So yeah, one of the quietest, one of the coolest, which is awesome, but it's also one of the best overclockers out there. And that's, of course, what I did pretty much instantly. I installed the card, installed the drivers, ran a few bench tests to get an idea of what it was doing. Now, the G1 Gaming Edition, out of the box, is already overclocked. Now, I'm going to read off the numbers here so I get them right. The stock base clock for a standard 970, the reference edition 970 and a lot of different cards that use the reference clocks, is 1050 and 1178 megahertz stock clocks. Out of the box, this is overclocked to 1178 base. So the turbo mode on the stock edition, this base clock is the same as the turbo speed, if you get what I mean. I'll put it on screen so it makes more sense for you. But anyway, out of the box, this is overclocked to 1178 and turbo is up to 1329. Perform identically. The temperatures are almost identical as well. I don't think I've got the temperatures noted down here, but it never goes above 60 degrees basically. And I've never had to have the fans go up to 100% to get it under that. Which I've got the temperature, I've got the fan ramping speeds. If it reaches, I think 65 degrees, I'll get it 70%. If it reaches 80 degrees, I'll go 100%. But they've never even had to spin up beyond base, so I've never had to go above 60 degrees doing anything. Also, the memory, I overclocked that from about 7,000 megahertz, I think, up to 8,110, which is a 1.1 gigahertz overclock on the memory itself. Ding dong, forgot to silence my phone before I started recording the video. So, the moral of the story is I made some good choices, I feel. I've got a bit of a beastly overclock on the graphics. Well, the graphic. I can push the graphics card a bit higher if I wanted to sort of push it to the limits. But what I want is an overclocked experience that gives me a little extra performance, so I can brag about the size of my e-penis a little bit and feel good about myself for selecting gear and spending the money on gear that can be overclocked. I can go, well, I overclocked that to this and this and this, and feel a bit chuffed, a bit of nerd cred about that. But I wanted it to be quiet and stay, at sort of idle noise levels, which it is doing, even under load, as I mentioned several times before. I'm kind of impressed with it, surprised actually. I did replace the standard case fans. I don't know whether I've got the boxes around here. I did replace the standard case fans with the Corsair Quiet Edition 120 SP fans, I think they are, which have a little red ring around them. I've got some B-roll and show you those guys. And I've got they come with a little voltage regulator thingy that drops the voltage down to keep them even, super quiet mode. And those things are just about silent. I'm not sure if they're as quiet as the Noctilus fans that everybody loves, but they're much, much, much more attractive than the Brown fans. The Brown fans of quiet doom, as I have come to call them. So I haven't had to resort to those. And I've got the stock cooler in the front there. That's pulling air in, push-pull, 2 fans on it, back and front, pulling cool air in from the front. The fan underneath it is also pulling cool air in from the front, which circulates past the graphics card to help that, vent its air around. And there's also an exhaust fan up on the top here. So we've got basically 3 fans, well, two fan positions, but 3 fans in total, pulling air in from the front, and 1 active fan pushing air out the top. And there's also the vents at the back here, which passively vent air, warm air at the back as well. Now that Windforce card does tend to pump a fair bit of warm air out from the back of the vents at the bottom of the PCI slot bars, but they're vented as well, so I haven't had any issues with getting heat out of the case. Under max load, if you put your hand on the window, you can definitely tell it's warming up the inside of the case. But as far as I've been monitoring it, keeping an eye on the temperature and everything seems to be keeping well under control without me having to ramp up the fans, which I'm completely happy with, because that means I can have it sitting here behind me quite happily. So when I'm doing a video that's framed up like this, it can sort of sit there and look cool or anything. And when the computer has to be on camera for any reason, it can sort of look cool. And if I'm reviewing something that goes into it or whatever. And I don't have to sort of hide it under the desk to try and hide the noise when I'm recording a video. I may turn it off if I'm not talking about the PC in particular, just to get rid of that slight background hum. I don't know how annoying that is. I don't even know how well it's coming across on this particular mic. I use several different types of mics, so it may very well be that the lavalier mic I sometimes use doesn't pick it up at all, or the boom mic I sometimes use doesn't pick it up at all, but this mic will, and I'll make that determination as I record videos and experiment. But right now, aside from the lighting in the case, which I still haven't done, because as we found out in the most recent build log video, the lights I chose blew up on me. Thanks, Deep Cool, you suck. So I haven't done anything about the lighting, and obviously the case does need lighting. It's a black void at the moment. There's very little point in having a window on it, so I'm going to get some subtle lighting in there. Not very bright. I'm not going to make it flash and dance or anything. I just want to light up the case because it does look good. I've done all my extra work now. When I put in the cooler and the graphics card, I did all my I re-cable managed everything, so it looks really, really clean and tidy now. The pipes on the cooler, though, they're very, very stiff, in case you're wondering, on the H100i GT edition. And in a case this size, it's very tough to get them wrangled into the right kind of position. That's the only thing I really don't like about that, aside from the pump noise. I wish the pump was a little bit quieter. I mean, it's not noisy, but I wish it was a little bit quieter still. But yeah, those pipes for the cooling are very, very stiff, which is a good thing because they don't kink. And the last thing you want in your water cooling is kinks in your pipes. But yeah, it's difficult to wrangle, basically. But that's it. That's functionally complete. Functionally complete Devil's Crevice build. Everything's in there that I want in there except for the lighting. Everything's overclocked the way I like it. Beautiful. It's staying quiet. It's staying cool. I'm very, very happy with it. The only thing I am a little bit disappointed in is the case. I love this case, the Corsair Air 240. It's a brilliant, brilliant design case. For a case this small, it's really easy to work in. Cable management is brilliant. The room is brilliant. The cooling ability is brilliant. But I found the plastic panels are a bit easy to scratch. I have actually managed to mark up a couple of these panels, a couple of slight scratches. And the window, I think, has got a couple of very, very fine marks on it already. Scuffs more than scratches or anything. But, that comes with plastic windows. I may even still replace that with glass, but it's not going to bother me too much because I'm not, putting it on display to be judged. I just want it to look kind of cool in the background of videos, which it hopefully will do. I think it does anyway. But yeah, I wish the materials that Corsair chose were a little bit tougher for the case. But everything else about this case is brilliant, and I do highly recommend it. You just, be a little extra careful when you're taking the panels off and on and to install your components, because apparently they do get marked up quite easily. Now, there are a couple more cosmetic things that I want to do with this. There are some vents that you can sort of pull out. I may spray paint those in red to get some red striping sort of going. I've seen a couple of other similar mods to do that. I may replace the front window here with glass because it's a little less reflective, so it's going to look better on video if I want to show off the components. I may replace the fans on the cooler with quiet edition fans. I don't know. There's a bunch of little bits and pieces I may do. Anyway, that's me rambling about my computer for long enough. How long have I been? About 20 minutes? That's too long already. I wanted to make this like 10 minutes long. Already put up a 20-minute video today. Gameplay thing. Journey. But I should stop rambling now. Thanks for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed the build log videos. We're not quite done yet. When I make any changes to the thing, I'll do another little video about it. If I install a different component for whatever reason, or swap out the fans, I'll probably do a video on that just to keep you guys in the loop, because a lot of people have been really enjoying these. Some people don't care at all. Some people bitch and complain why I'm not doing a review of something else and I'm bored of the PC stuff. Well, don't watch the PC-based videos then, dickheads. It's not hard to not click on things. It's easier, in fact, than clicking on something and then whining about it in the comments section. Yeah, pricks. I turned a corner there at the end, didn't I? Thanks for watching. I am Blunty. I will catch you next time. Whew. I think they got nasty at the end there.